And now, let's take a look at 4 verbs that are irregular in the preterite tense. Because these verbs are irregular in the preterite tense, you must simply learn their conjugations. Fortunately, there are no accents or endings to memorize. However, these verbs do work differently than the verbs we've studied previously. And once we take a look at the conjugations of these irregular verbs, we'll take a moment to discuss how you might best learn them. Let's begin with the verb dar. In the infinitive form, it means to give. Its preterite conjugations are di, diste, dio, dimos, distes, dieron. In English, these conjugations might read I gave, you gave, he, she, it gave, we gave, y'all gave, or they gave. Please note that there are no accents on these conjugations of the verb dar. The verb ver and its conjugations in the preterite tense are very similar to those of dar. In the infinitive form, ver means to see. In the preterite tense, ver is conjugated vi, viste, vio, vimos, vistes, vieron. And in English, those conjugations might read I saw, you saw, he, she, it, or you saw, we saw, y'all saw, or they saw. Again, please note that irregular verbs do not have accents. Our next verb, decir, means to say in the infinitive form. In the preterite tense, its conjugations are dije, dijiste, dijo, dijimos, dijisteis, dijeron. And when we take a look at the conjugations as they might read in English, you will see that decir is a verb that will be used frequently in the preterite tense. Because those English conjugations read, I said, you said, he, she, or it said, we said, y'all said, and they said. So if you think about it, you frequently use a form of the verb to say in daily conversation. This term will also frequently appear when writing a story or describing a quotation. Our final verb, traer, means to bring in the infinitive form. And if you'll think all the way back to regular verbs, you will remember that traer was an exception from ER and IR spelling changes. So keep that in mind as you learn the new conjugations for traer, and be sure to keep it separated from your ER and IR spelling changes. The conjugations of traer in the preterite tense are traje, trajiste, trajo, trajimos, trajistes, trajeron. And in English, those translations read, I brought, you brought, he, she, it, or you brought, we brought, y'all brought, and they brought. Again, remember that there are no accents on irregular verbs. So now you may ask, These verbs don't seem to follow a specific pattern, so what's the best way to learn them? My suggestion to you is to look at the similarities between the four verbs. For instance, if we take a look at the verbs dar and ver, you can see that their conjugations are the exact same with the exception of the first letter. Di, vi, diste, viste, dio, vio, dimos, vimos, disteis, visteis, dieron, vieron. So, if I were you, I would learn dar and ver together. The same is true for decir and traer. They have similar endings. If you look at the he, histe, ho, he, histe, ho, himos, histes, heron, himos, histes, heron. You can easily see a relationship between these two verbs. Again, it's not as simple as regular verbs, but it's not impossible if you're willing to put the time and effort into learning these conjugations. And that brings us to the end of our 6th video in this series of Preterit tense notes. You can check out my blog at mercyspanish.blogspot.com for more practice activities and a link to my Prezi for class notes. Happy conjugating!